Former National Nighttime Talk Radio host and now Veterans Health Advocate Jim Ball is with me. Jim, a very good morning to you.
And to you also, Chris. I have to say, I'm sitting here listening to Judy. Maybe she'd be more at home with the ABC. And I got to thinking, listening to her, I'm thinking, now, where have I heard this before? This is straight from the Simon and Garfunkel song, The Boxer. A man hears what he wants to hear and disregards the rest. That's where she was coming from, Chris.
I think you might be right.
Yeah.
This didn't go down well for Albo. Hamas has hailed our Prime Minister for backing a Palestinian state. He's one of the heroes now. But as was inevitable, the last thing any Western leader should be doing is give death cults like Hamas any kind of vindication for their heinous acts, right?
Absolutely. Look, talk about a day that will live in infamy, as who said that? Anyway, way back when, it was Roosevelt. In the words of Douglas Murray, the British journalist, in the days after October 7/23, when everybody was outing themselves, he said something that has stuck with me for years, 2 years now, 2.5, going on 3 years, is it? 2 years. When the flare goes up at night on the battlefield, you get to see where everyone stands. And here we are. The Australian Prime Minister stands with this cult of jihadist baby killers. I mean, in the history of the nation, Christians Federation, this single act of Albanese would be the greatest ever miscalculation, misunderstanding of events on the ground, the greatest betrayal of friends and allies. And it's become, the Labor Party used to be the great Australian Labor Party, Tree of Knowledge, Ben Chifley, Bar Calden, all of that. It's now become totally beholden, captured, held hostage to the murderous cult of Hamas and Middle East jihadists. And it's beyond belief, I think, that an Australian Prime Minister who put himself out there as holding to the true Australian values, complete with the hat that he wears, the Ben Chifley persona he's trying to project.
Yeah.
That's what he's trying to do with that hat. Yeah. He's put himself out there, and it's beyond belief that he would betray the nation like this. Has he ever bothered to watch the 47-minute body cam video, the first-person view, filmed by Hamas of what they did on October 7th?
Yeah.
There is a glass. That's the downside of it, but there is an upside to all of this. And look, quite frankly, I hope this haunts Albanese to his grave, to be honest. And it would be interesting to see what the polling says about all of this, and particularly polling amongst Labor Party people. I think this could be another voice. He thinks he's followed social media. He thinks he's read the room, but I think he's read it all incorrectly. And so it'll be fascinating to see what they say. Look, my advice, if he wants it, Bibi Netanyahu, would be the advice of Napoleon in, I think it was about 1805. If you're going to take Vienna, take Vienna, meaning that when you set out to do something, you should just see it through and do it fast.
Yeah.
But that's all the downside. Now, the upside to this is that a Palestinian state won't happen in our lifetime, if ever. Now, why do I say that? Because once you have a state, they lose their raison d'etre. They no longer have a cause. Yeah. They lose their purpose. They lose their potency. They're no longer a victim. And that's what they've been playing up for the last 40 years since Arafat. Palestinianism, as Melanie Phillips calls it, as a rallying cause, that'll lose its currency and be neutered and rendered totally impotent once they become a state. But they don't want to become a state, because the state brings with it, Chris, responsibility.
Yes, mutual responsibilities and respect for who's on the other side of the border.
They want from river to the sea and everything that implies, and they will manipulate public opinion to try and achieve that goal. But they can only do that as a ginger group outsider, because once they've signed on the bottom line, once they accept a set of borders, they're locked in, and they have to behave responsibly and like a proper global citizen. Yeah. They can't do that. No. They will never do that.
No.
That's why there will never be an Australian state, a Palestinian state.
Yeah.
And, of course, it's got to come with the imprimatur of the US and Israel. And that's not going to happen either.
Yeah. Still on Albo, he's obviously not a hero in the eyes of Treasurer Jim Chalmers. They were at odds last week over tax changes in this term. I said then on air there'll be a terse confrontation between the pair because Albo basically put the Treasurer under a bus, and now we learned yesterday there was a meeting. But Chalmers is still marching on. He's obviously prepared to take on Albanese over his plans to tax us in this term of government. What do you make of this?
Well, look, my first reading of this, when I read it this morning, is that, they're running a good cop, bad cop routine.
Right.
That's how it came across to me. Look, the objectives of these round tables is to set the table, and the pre-publicity is to set the table in advance, to soften everyone up into a state of almost, eye glazing. So by the time the thing comes around, What is it, next week?
Aren't we lucky?
To death with it. Sorry?
Yeah, so that we actually do what most countries who've been hit with tariffs by Donald Trump are doing. Oh, aren't we lucky now?
Yeah, that's right. Look, the government already has their objectives in mind, and they're simply seeking validation from the unions and the big end of town overlords.
Yeah.
The idea is to be seen to be going through a transparent process. I mean, why do a round table to strip away regulations and red tape and green tape? Why not just do it?
Yes.
And the language too, Chris, is interesting. He said this morning that, and let me see here, Albo says he'll cover up for he's up for ideas for big reform, which were something the Labor Party would consider committing to the next term of government.
Yeah.
Consider the next term, really? I mean, it's possible, probably more likely than not. But just notice the language. That's what you call kicking the can down the road.
Of course. If you've got a productivity drama, a crisis, and there is, it's zero, you've got to make changes now.
Look, the big crisis confronting Australia, which won't be addressed, and that is immigration. That's what's driving the housing crisis. Yeah. That is a crisis for, present and future generations.
Yep.
And it's a basic principle of supply and demand.
Yep.
Simple as that. That's the kind of big reform that may excite people. Here's another one for the Liberal Party, Chris. In Victoria, I'm not sure if it's effective now or next year, gas for domestic use is banned, right?
Yeah.
In Sydney, the Sydney City Council, gas is banned from, I think, January 1 for domestic use. And there are, I think, 7 other councils around New South Wales. If the Liberal Party want to go with a policy, there's one for you. We will lift the ban on gas. Yeah. And how they do that vis-a-vis the states, I don't know. But they're the kind of issues that they should be crawling all over. But they won't.
They're in disarray. They're in terrible disarray. Now, I want to move on to this one. I want to move on to the Socialist Republic of Victoria. They continue to embrace this disgusting encouragement of children to think they could really be the opposite sex in a different body. They're making curriculum changes to push gender fluidity and suggest to school kids this could mean them. Here is Jacinta Allen about an hour and a half ago.
Transgender kids are 15 times more likely to kill themselves. So whether it's across our schooling system or across our health system, supporting those kids and supporting those families should be a priority because it's the right thing to do. What's not right is this ongoing campaign to tear down programs that are about strengthening kids' resilience. It's about preventing bullying. It's about protecting kids against future harm. That's what needs to stop.
Well, she's going about it the wrong way. What she's doing in Victoria is gross and dangerous.
I can't believe it. And that line, I hear it all the time, that old chestnut about kids' suicide. Okay, where are your statistics? I've heard the exact opposite, that it's simply not true, but it's a very, very, very emotional issue. When you start sort of saying to parents, what do you want, a dead child or a trans child? I mean, what do you say? It's like not taking your dog to the vet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very emotional thing. Look, the last time we spoke, Chris, a couple of weeks ago, last week, every bad idea comes from the petri dish and the crucible of the faculty lounge at the universities. And this stuff is just another example.
Yep.
Here's a news flash for Jacinta Allen. There are 2 genders. One goes to the gynecologist, one goes to the urologist, and the other goes to the psychiatrist. It's as simple as that. We've got less than 1%, 0.5, to 0.6% of the global population that are transgender. But we're going to turn, just like renewables turning the economy on its head, we're going to turn a whole social structures on its head because of 0.5 to 0.6% of the population. No one, and I mean absolutely no one, is asking or demanding that this stuff be in our schools or the schools in Victoria. It's another of those divisive 90-10 issues that Trump is so very good at jumping on. And it's being imposed from the top down, and you're being lectured to, as you were in that soundbite there from Alan. And it's all designed, listen to this, to sow the seeds of doubt and confusion in young, impressionable and malleable minds, and to create problems for families at home. That's what it's about. And not to labour the Orwellian angle, but note the names of this teaching resource: respectful relationships. Well, who could possibly argue with that?
Correct.
Respectful for whom exactly, Chris? And apart from this revelation out of Victoria, is that biological male students who identify as female are entitled to play sport on girls' teams. Well, has anybody asked the biological girls, what about their rights? What about their entitlements?
Exactly.
We're often told, Chris, about safe spaces, but that doesn't seem to apply when it comes to males invading female pastimes.
Spot on.
Yeah.
It's just outrageous. And I sometimes get the impression, Jim, I'm in the wrong country when they talk like that. I'm in the wrong country. At the end of the day, maybe those kids have just got homosexual or lesbian tendencies, and they're going through what many of us have probably gone through in adolescence as well. You deal with it. You deal with it on a psychological basis. You don't start saying, well, you need to consider that you're in the wrong body. You're actually a different sex, so we need to direct you to a clinic to take puberty blockers and maybe even surgery. Give us a break.
One more or two quick points on this, Chris. What I still can't understand and get my head around is that governments, sporting authorities, much of the corporate world and the media, with a straight face, believe in, promote, support, celebrate and enable this stuff as legitimate. And don't see it for the growing mental health and misogynistic issue that it actually is.
Yes.
And like so much else these days, climate's another one. It's an entire hoax. And in years to come, this entire transgender business will be regarded in the same light as the lobotomies, which was part of the biggest and most horrendous medical scandal of the mid-20th century to the early to mid-20th century, and which was totally discredited and debunked in the very worst, mad and insane way. It was real Nazi Dr. Mengele stuff. And interesting to see. And by the way, the most famous lobotomy was JFK's sister, Rosemary. They performed a lobotomy on her, supposedly to treat epilepsy and depression, but it's been totally debunked. But one final point on this, Chris. Today's Australian psychiatrist, Andrew, in the editorial, Andrew Amos told the Australian that introducing ideas to children before they have the emotional and the intellectual capacity to process those ideas could be harmful. One of the most troubling reports we've heard is that schools and teachers will not always inform parents of the ideas they're introducing to kids, and will not always inform parents if their children want to transition. I mean, and the next level, Chris, is surgery. And they'll tell you, well, if genitals don't define a gender. Well, if genitals don't define gender, how does removing genitals affirm gender?
Yes. Good point. I've got to run. You've been so on point today, Jim Ball. I appreciate your contribution.
Thanks, Chris.
Good on you. Former National Nighttime Talk host, Jim Ball. 24 minutes to 11 o'clock. Our number, 13 12 69. I'd love to hear what's better late than never, Mary, and what's happening.